Hello, Kylie.
Hi, Clive. How are you?
Absolutely top of the world. Thank you very much. Now that the
Excellent.
technical stuff is done by somebody who understands it, I'm feeling even better.
I'm glad it wasn't left in my hands as well.
Indeed, which probably highlights we each have our areas of expertise. And from time to time, it's a good idea, I think, to run away from one which is not yours.
I completely agree.
But we've had exciting times, Kylie, across these recent couple of weeks. And lots and lots of confusion, lots of information, most of it delivered, I think, pretty well, but it covers areas that lots of us aren't expert in,
Yes.
which is why we've invited Kylea to come along. So who is Kylea? Kylea is Kylea Martin. She is from Safety in Numbers Group, and that might give you a clue that she actually understands a bit about numbers. So, and
We hope,
I'll let
right?
Kylea elaborate on that in a minute as well. But we really want to talk about the stimulus package that the government has announced to help try and keep the economy running through this COVID-19 thingy. And with that in mind, what's the general idea of having a stimulus package, please, Kylea?
Well, we've obviously come off the back of the bushfires, which has already put a lot of pressure on business owners, particularly those that were directly affected. And with the unknown impact of our coronavirus that's going around, the government has brought out a stimulus package that is aimed at trying to keep the economy strong and keep confidence in the economy. So they've brought in a range of stimulus options. Mainly, there's 4 key areas that they're looking at for business owners and the economy in general. And that's, you know, as we might have heard come around, there's the ones in regards to individuals, and that's the stimulus package for households, which everybody might have heard about, the $750 one-off payment. Then for businesses, they've brought in a support to business investment, so they want to keep businesses investing during this difficult time, and there's 2 key areas that they've brought in to support business investment. And then there's the cash flow assistance for businesses as well during this time. So how to boost cash flow for employers, and as well as supporting apprentices and trainees that are within businesses. So the key is that they want to keep businesses afloat. They want to keep people in jobs, and they've put in these measures aimed to try and do that. They have brought in one further measure, which is about assistance to severely affected regions. So we're talking our travel regions, our, the Cairns area and that type of thing, where there's higher demand on travel. And with as we know, last night, as of midnight tonight, if you come in from overseas, now you're in 14 days quarantine. Self-isolation, I think, is the correct term. And so these areas in travel and tourism are going to be severely affected as well. So they've got a long-term plan to help those communities as well. But it's a lot, and it's still got to get passed. But the ultimate aim is to try and provide confidence in the economy and to keep people in jobs.
Excellent description. And for the sake of this little exercise, let's assume that it's going to be passed.
Yes.
And talk about it as if it's already here, because there's quite a bit, as you just ran through there, it's quite detailed, and a lot of it doesn't apply to me or to them or to etc. So we might have a look at a few things.
Yes.
But we've had an overview of the government's response in that economic package that you've just outlined.
Yeah.
Seeing as we're talking primarily to small businesses, and you did mention about staffing and keeping people employed,
yes.
Is there something particular that we could know about if we are a small business? Do we have an opportunity to claim something, and how will it actually work, if you understand that?
Yes.
And if we have employees, just to make it difficult by giving you more questions all in one.
So the big thing for businesses, that the small businesses that the government wants to do, obviously, is to boost their cash flow. And the reason for this, obviously, is there's going to be a downturn in business. We don't know how much of a downturn, but there will be a downturn in business. So that means businesses will struggle for cash flow. So the government's brought in two measures. One, so both around cash flow, one particularly around supporting apprentices and trainees. And the key one that most people or most business owners might have heard is this $25,000 rebate to support their cash flow. And I think there's some confusion around, and it's, like I said, it's still early days and it was only released late last week. But the idea is that if you're a small business, so we're talking about a turnover of under $50 million, and you employ workers, then they want you to keep those workers on. So what they're saying is, you obviously pay these workers and you withhold the tax that you would normally then remit to the ATO. What the ATO is saying is that you get to keep 50% of that, up to $25,000. So as the employee, they still are reported via the STP that tax has been deducted from their wage, but the employer gets to keep 50% of it, up to a maximum of $25,000. And that's just to help their cash flow, keep that cash in their business. What's key is that there is a minimum threshold limit. So if you are a very small business and you employ people that might be on a casual basis, and they might not earn enough to withhold tax, so you might not actually have withheld any tax from their wages to claim that 50% rebate. What they're saying is, if you have those employees and they just haven't reached the limit to withhold, you will get a minimum payment of $2,000 back for you to help your cash flow. But the key is that this is working from the March quarter, so when you report on BAS. So if you don't hit your cap at 25,000 in the March quarter, you can claim it still until you hit your cap up to the June quarter, or monthly if you're on a monthly BAS. And that's just to help keep the cash in the business, hopefully to help you keep people in employment during this time.
So that one's particularly aimed at businesses with employees, and yes, of course it has rules around it, but it's aimed at those people, or those businesses, largely because they're the ones at greatest risk of difficulty in these times. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And the government estimates that this particular measure will benefit around 690,000 businesses, which is a huge number of small businesses. And those businesses, they estimate, employ around about 7.8 million people. So it has an impact on a great number of people. You want to keep those people employed as long as we can, because then they've got money coming in to spend in the economy, to keep the economy going and keep other businesses afloat. And that's the key. That's why it's really aimed at small businesses that have employees. Unfortunately, this particular measure, it means if you're a sole trader and you don't have any employees, you will get no benefit from this particular measure that the government has put in place. However, if you are a sole trader but you do have employees, you will fall under this.
Which, as you pointed out, they're targeting approximately 7.8 million employees, and I don't know off the top of my head what the total number of employed in Australia is, but I gather that 7.8 million is a fairly large swag.
Yeah, they say, like, we're talking about companies under 50 million. So, and most of Australia is employed by small businesses. I don't know the exact percentage off the top of my head, but it is a large portion of the people that are employed here.
Yeah, last time I looked, it was over 50%, I think. Not much, but certainly over 50%. So it's a lot. Timothy asked on the chat, what about any help for tradies that are self-employed with no employees? I think we just covered that.
Yeah, so this particular measure won't help anybody that doesn't have any employees, because it is about the tax that's withheld from you withhold from an employee's wages. So this particular measure won't help. There are other measures that are around investment that may help, but you won't get anything back in terms of any part of that $25,000 if you don't employ anybody. That's just the way that they've set this particular measure up, this particular assistance
package. And we'll come to that investment part. We'll come to that investment part shortly. Rosalind commented, remember it hasn't passed legislation as yet, etc. Yes,
absolutely.
As we mentioned at the start, we're assuming that these measures will pass. We're talking about it as if they will. If we don't want to get into political side of things, but the various parties have indicated that they will pass as soon as they're put before the Parliament. So we're probably on reasonably safe ground to talk about that.
Yes.
In that sense. So there's the investment side of things. There's another possibility that people can get a benefit from this stimulus package through investing in what, Kylie?
So one of the other measures that the government is obviously putting in place is the support for business investment. So they want businesses to keep investing. So they want businesses to spend money as well. And they've brought in two keys of that, which is they're increasing the instant asset write-off. So the proposal is that the current threshold is $30,000. So if you buy an asset up to $30,000, you can write it off instantly in the current year. So they're dramatically increasing that to $150,000. So what they're saying is if you spend on an asset that's $150,000, so you might be a delivery business, you might be a landscape business that needs to buy a new truck or a new something for your business, this will become an instant write-off for your business. So the keys around that is that you must have turnover of less than $500 million. So that would be the majority of small business owners, but that's where someone like a tradie or a landscaping business, they might need a new truck, a new something, a new, I don't know, digger. Up to $150,000, you can write it off in the financial year ending 30 June, which means you pay less tax during the current year. And therefore, if you've been paying your PAYG, you would probably get that back. The second part of the investment strategy that they're taking forward is in regards to longer term investment. So they're looking at a longer term investment strategy where you can purchase an asset and that you will actually get to write off up to 50% of the asset on let's call it installation. So you're fast tracking your write-off from that, and then post that they're saying that you'll revert to normal depreciation rates. So again, it's to try and bring back a larger portion of that into this current financial year, therefore not paying as much tax this financial year, therefore keeping more cash in your business to sustain your business during this time. Again, there's still, like we've said, we're assuming that these are going to pass. I would suspect they would pass. There's still the wraparound with the ATO trying to work out how we're going to process all of this. So we do need to keep our eye on the ATO for those further updates.
And for the benefit of everybody paying attention or seeing this later, in the posts beside this on the Facebook Live, we'll find some. You'll find some links to various government departments and other bodies, so that you can keep an eye on this regularly and get the right information. Because at the end of the day, the reason we're talking to Kylea is just to help us understand what this is all about. The best way to deal with anything I found is to be well informed, and by being well informed, it doesn't mean the gossip you heard down at the line up for no toilet paper. So,
Yes.
and of course, we're talking here specifically about small business and how you might manage your way through this stimulus package. So, have we covered the main gist of the overall story, if you like, Kylea? Have we got that out of the way?
Yeah, I think the other one that I would like to touch on, so I think I might just jump, first of all, I've seen a question from Simone in the Q&A saying that she missed something about employees that don't meet the tax threshold. So I thought I'll just quickly review that again for you. So Simone, if you employ somebody in your business, but they don't meet the threshold for you to deduct tax, so they might be only part-time 1 day a week, but they earn below the tax threshold, so therefore you don't actually deduct any tax from their salaries, but you still have employees, then you will be entitled to a $2,000 rebate. So that's the minimum that the government have said. So if you have employees, the minimum you will receive is $2,000. The maximum you'll receive is $25,000, and it's all dependent on how much tax is actually deducted from your employees' salaries. So I hope that clarifies Simone's question. But the other thing, Clive, I wanted to touch on was actually the response. So further to that cash flow one with the $25,000 up to $25,000 that you could get back, there is a second support measure to that, which is about supporting apprentices and trainees. So this is particularly around your tradie type businesses where you might have an apprentice landscape gardener, you might have an apprentice electrician or something like that. Again, the aim of this one is that the government wants to keep you retaining your apprentices and trainees. So what their measure that they've put out is that eligible employers can apply for a wage subsidy for these apprentices of up to 50% of the apprentices or your trainees' wages over a 9-month period. So the employers will be reimbursed a maximum of $21,000 per eligible apprentice. So that's the key there, is that if you have more, like you might have 5 eligible apprentices, it's per eligible apprentice. So it equates to about $7,000 per quarter that you will actually be reimbursed from the government for keeping your trainee on. So that's to help support the trainees' wages so that you can continue to employ those trainees and apprentices, and therefore the government will support you by reimbursing up to a maximum of $21,000 per eligible apprentice. The key with this one is that you'll have to, first of all, be eligible. So you have to have fewer than 20 full-time employees. And it starts from the 1st of March. And that you will need to apply for this. And they say that you can register for the subsidy from about early April, and that's all dependent on when/if, but I suspect when it actually passes. That you'll need to apply for this through the Australian Apprenticeship Support Network and ensure that you can actually get it. And again, this measure they anticipate will help approximately 70,000 small businesses and around 120,000 apprentices, which is quite substantial to keep them employed. And that's just another measure on top of your rebate of $25,000 for tax withheld from wages.
So essentially, it's let's keep the economy going.
Yes.
And everybody trying to do their bit. I did notice somewhere that, in the event that a business isn't able to retain all of their people, there are things about, well, in particular to apprentices, there are things about that, but that's further down the track. And we don't want to get, it's muddy enough now, Kylie.
Yeah.
I'm just a simple man. I need these things explained well.
And it's a difficult time for businesses. And like I said earlier, we're coming off the bushfires, so some businesses are just getting a double whammy here, and the government is really key on making sure that we support the economy. Everything is coming in from early April, 1st of April type of thing, same as the $750 stimulus payments to qualifying individuals. That's not coming out until the payments from the 31st of March onwards. And the reason for that is they want you to spend that money in the April to June quarter so that there's no technical recession, is what they're trying to do. The biggest unknown here is we've never been through, well, not in my lifetime, I can't recall ever going through something like this coronavirus and the impact it's having across the world at the moment. But at the end of the day, we do have a strong economy in Australia, which is allowing the government to put in these measures to help support businesses with cash flow and ways to ensure that they can retain their employees through this period of time. And again, all of this is what they call tax-free. So if you get that $25,000, you don't need to claim it as income and therefore pay further tax on it. It's all tax-free for everybody.
Yes, highly geared to keep money moving around, because that's what makes it all work, which brings us to the point of small businesses. Better remember that many of the people they're dealing with are other small businesses, so let's pay our bills on time.
Yes.
And keep that money moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's the little blockages suddenly become big blockages, and that causes the trouble. So
absolutely
well explained. Thank you, Kylie. I followed that.
Good. It's very hard. I mean, everybody's only got the information like late on Friday. We're all trying to get an understanding of it. The ATO are running around at the moment, and we've still got to come to the measures that the ATO are putting in place as well. These are government stimulus measures that have come out so far. These measures from the ATO that they're putting out to help businesses, and then there's what a business can do for themselves as well.
Indeed. And Emma asks, how does the apprenticeship money work that bosses get? My son's an apprentice. Correct me. Well, you can tell the story better than I can. Essentially, it's the money is provided to the business to ensure or give them a better opportunity of retaining the apprentice. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the idea is the money isn't to give to the apprentice themselves technically, but it's for the business to help continue to keep the apprentices employed. So at the $7,000 a quarter, it means that the business will pay the apprentice the same amount they've been getting all the time, but the cost to the business will be $7,000 a quarter less. And that's the idea, is to help support the business to retain their apprentices and their trainees through this period. Because as we know, unfortunately, it would probably be the apprentices or the trainees that would be let go first if the business is struggling to support their employees.
Indeed, that's usually the way that it goes. So
yes.
Hopefully Emma won't have to worry about her lad retaining his position. He'll be doing a good job and the business will be working away and everything will work fine.
Mm-hmm.
So have we covered everything? Did I ask you everything I was supposed to?
Yeah, I think what I want to touch on is just some support measures that the ATO are putting in place for small businesses, Clive. So what we've talked about so far is the stimulus that the Australian government have put in place, but the ATO are also putting together some some measures to help support businesses through this time. And they include things like payment deferrals. So if your business is directly affected by coronavirus, that the ATO will work with you to defer some of your payments or vary some of your instalments to help you get through. And they're saying at this stage for a period up to 4 months. They're also saying that if you need your GST credits back in the business to help with cash flow, is that they will allow you to change from a quarterly to a monthly GST cycle so that you can get those credits back into your business much sooner. But there's key things to note there in that you must then stay monthly for 12 months. Pay-as-you-go instalments. So again, they're allowing you to vary your PAYG instalments for the March quarter. So that you can keep that additional little bit of cash in your business. This is an interesting one. They are prepared to remit any interest and penalties. So they will consider remitting any interest and penalties on tax liabilities incurred after the 23rd of January, which is where we find the key impact of coronavirus may have started. And obviously low interest payment plans. So if you do have a debt or you do have stuff to pay, they will help spread the load by providing a payment plan for you. But the key one for small businesses is you must still meet your super guarantee obligations. They will not vary that. They will not change that. And you will incur payments and penalties if that remains unpaid. So it's vital that small businesses keep up to date with their superannuation guarantees and speak to their accountant, their tax agent, their BAS agent, or to the ATO directly to see how other measures might be able to help them through this particular period.
And we had a question from the Facebook Live. What about hardship? Is that an option for business? I imagine the closest that I've heard you talk about for that would be that last little piece you mentioned, the ATO providing opportunities to benefit there.
Yeah, and the ATO are very, and want to make sure that businesses have a way to protect them. The ATO isn't out to put businesses out of business. They have a role to play, and they will take things into consideration. Your best bet in any of this, and this doesn't just apply to the ATO, but your suppliers, your rent, if you're struggling with your cash because of the impact of coronavirus, your best step forward as a business is to actually talk to these people and to see what payment plans you can put in place to help sustain your business over this period. One of the key things to the ATO is that unlike the bushfire relief measures that they had in place, which were automatically applied, so your extension of your BAS and all of that to particular geographical areas, that was automatically applied. The measures that they're proposing to support in terms of coronavirus implications, you will need to actually apply for. So that's where you need to either call the ATO direct or speak to your tax or BAS agent and get them to contact the ATO on your behalf. So you do need to apply. In this case, there's no automatic across the board applying these measures.
Excellent advice, Kylie. Now, no doubt this stimulus package will be very, very helpful, but just business in general, like they won't apply to everybody. Not everybody's going to get a handout straight from the government or necessarily from the taxation department. But
yes.
What tips would you like to put out for people just to, well, better housekeeping, if you will?
Yeah, and I think this is what businesses can do for that they need to do for themselves as well. The government can only do so much for a small business, and I think this is where tight financial controls are really important for small businesses. So I think for me, the first thing you need to do is get your financial statements up to date. Know where you're sitting at, make sure your bank reconciliations are all reconciled, make sure you know where everything is at the moment so that you can start making some decisions about what you need to do. Because once you've got those up-to-date financial statements, you can start estimating what the financial impact's going to be to your business, and therefore hopefully be on the front foot to develop some strategies to mitigate that impact as much as you possibly can. And that includes taking into account the options that are available through the government stimulus package and the ATO as well. The next thing I would give businesses a tip to do is perform a financial health check on your business. Make sure you know your cash position. Make sure you know the upcoming payments that you need to make. And just do a full health check on your business. Your bookkeeper, BAS agent, accountant can help you through this. There's financial ratios and all of that they can do so that you can make sure that you know what you're doing with your business. What I would then also do is this is the time to redo your budget. All businesses should have a budget, and I think this is the time that you now need to sit and redo your budget for the last quarter of the financial year. And I would suggest that, you know, you may have to do something as consider a 50 to 80% decline in your sales over the next 6 months, you know, depending on your type of business. But I think redoing your budget allows you to look and make these assumptions of where you're going to go over the next 6 months. And, you know, as I've reiterated, cash flow is king. You know, you've got to know where your cash flow is and how you can improve your cash flow. So if you have bank loans, contact the banks, talk to the banks, see if you can maybe lower your repayments through this period to help with your business cash flow. If you've got suppliers, see if you can, you know, don't withhold payments from suppliers because there are possibly other small businesses that need it as well. See if you can talk to them, maybe spread your payments out so you can still give them cash, but you're helping yourself. They're just a few suggestions. But also in regards to suppliers, if you are reliant on suppliers for the running of your business, whether it's for stock, you need to talk to your suppliers to make sure that they are in a position that they're still going to be able to supply your business. Because if they are unable to supply your business, that will have a detrimental effect to you. So you will then, if they can't, you will then need to consider other alternative suppliers, at least in the short term, for you to continue to trade. And finally, it's important if you are in financial difficulty, it's important that you seek advice early. There are consequences, I'll call them, but for trading insolvently, and you don't want to be caught doing that, particularly if you are set up as a company and you're set up as the director of the company. As the director, there are severe penalties around that. So you want to make sure that you have the financial reserves to cover your debts, and you want to make sure that you're able to pay your creditors and tax obligations. And that's why I think it's important to get your financial statements up to date, look at your cash flow, reforecast your budget for the next, you know, at least till the end of the financial year, and probably for a further 3 months on, particularly, and make sure it's a thing that you're constantly doing, because what we know is that we are in an unknown. You know, there's not a lot we know about what's coming up except that it's an unknown, and it's about just being on your front foot. You know, cash is king in this right at the moment, so we just need to make sure everything's up to date, and make sure it gives your business the best opportunity.
Indeed, couldn't agree with you more, Kylie. Budget, 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 because if we can see what's coming, we can deal with it. If we don't see it coming, we're reacting. And if we're reacting, that's not necessarily a good result.
No, and it's a difficult time for everybody across the board, all business owners at the moment, because there is just such an unknown about the impact. And the government have put in this stimulus package. I suspect they will probably have to do more in a couple of months, um, until we are able to ascertain what the real impact is to the economy. And I can see a comment there from Jane saying state governments are planning to release more, and I agree. The state governments, it may be around payroll tax and that sort of thing, that they can help with cash flow for businesses as well. But yeah, hopefully there's more support coming for businesses, but I suspect even from the federal government there will be more coming later on down the track once we see the full impact.
Indeed. So we're in a strong position because we've been doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep doing good.
Yep, that's all we can do. And, just be on the front foot with everything, It doesn't hurt to ask. And I can see a comment there about fixed rent is the highest cost. Yeah, it is. It generally is for most businesses that have a bricks and mortar place, if you want to call it, if you're a shop or something like that. And again, if you're struggling to do it, ask. See, there's no harm in asking to see if you can maybe make less repayments at the moment, less payments now on your rent, and then higher payments later on to help support the cash flow. I think everybody is in the same boat, and we just need to all work together on that.
Indeed. And most things in business are worked out through common sense approach and people approaching the same things with common decency.
Yeah. And look, every measure that we've got here isn't going to, save every single business, unfortunately. So there will unfortunately be businesses that will not survive this. But it's about trying to keep as many businesses as we can, because they are such a big employer of Australians, that we want to keep businesses going. So, but the reality is that there will be some businesses that won't survive this. So the best you can do is be aware of all of the options available to you in terms of stimulus packages that have been released from state government, from federal government at the moment, potential ones coming from your state governments, options available to you within the ATO, and taking stock of your own accounts and financial statements and your own cash position to know. But if you know that, then you can make informed decisions about your business.
And the best way of dealing with all of that is to stay informed, and if we can't figure it out for ourselves, find those with the right expertise to help us. So
Exactly.
If we need an accountant, find an accountant. If we need a bookkeeper, find a bookkeeper, and so on and so forth. Thank you, Kylie. This has been excellent, and for making sense of what can be quite a muddy walkthrough, really, with all of that information that's available.
Yes.
But you've made it seem very simple for us. Thank you for that. For those out there paying attention to the broadcast, earlier today we had a conversation with a lawyer to help understand that. Kylie's helping us understand the stimulus package. Later today, well, at 2:00 actually, we'll be talking to Karen Hillen from Hillen HR, who will be giving us some help understanding dealing with the staff and everything associated with that. So hopefully by the end of that, everybody can have a pretty good handle on getting that front foot firmly planted and moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all we can do at this stage, is make sure we're as prepared as possible and that we're as informed as possible to make our decisions.
And as I mentioned earlier, Kylie is from Safety in Numbers Group, and you can find Kylie at safetyinNumbersGroup.com.au. and I've just popped that up in the chat area. So if anybody does want to have a chat to Kylea and see if she can help their particular position, whatever it might be, you'll be pretty comfortable hearing from people, Kylea.
Yes, absolutely. And by all means, yeah, feel free to email me as well. It's just kylie.martin@safetynumbersgroup.com.au. And I'm more than happy to help anybody with any questions as much as I can provide. But yeah, definitely make sure you're as informed as possible and on top of your financial statements and your cash position within your business. And, you know, that's the best position that you can be in right now.
There you go. Thank you, Kylea. I think we've dealt with all the questions that were coming in.
Excellent, thank you.
Covered everything there. Thank you for giving us a very clear synopsis of everything that's happening at the moment, which of course everybody tells us that will change and could change this afternoon or tomorrow, but
exactly.
At least we're trying to stay on top.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your time. I'm hopefully could have helped at least one person there. But as we said, everything's changing daily at the moment. So I'm sure something else will crop up soon. But all we can do is keep on pushing through and keep ourselves informed.
There you go. Thank you, Kylea.
Thank you so much. See you later.
Bye, Nella.
Bye.